Okay, we're now ready to go. Wholeness and balance vibrations to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to day 5 of the virtual cleanse. Let me just put these earphones here. And of course, it's an amazing day because we're going to be talking about crystals and we're going to be talking about energy. And of course, that's going to tie right into the body because the body is made of crystals. In fact, many people know that in the crown chakra that is actually a crystal. And then you have magnetic energy moving throughout the body. We're going to definitely talk about that today because that's going to make a big connection for you with where a lot of the organic energy supplies really come from, especially when you have the oscillation and the movement of the pranic energy going through your body. So just as you see with electronical items, how when electricity is moving through, it creates an electromagnetic field. When the prana is moving through the body, it actually creates a field on its own, and it's another kind of magnet, and that's why there's different kinds of magnets. There's neodymium magnets, there's lodestones, there's different kind of magnets if you go out in hematite, etc. And so you have to see that each magnet and each energy source is specific to or pairs with a specific type of organism. So before we even get into that kind of information, what I do want to talk about first is I want to talk about where we're at on the cleanse, and of course it's day 5 for everyone, or actually, yeah, everyone will be on day 5 no matter what part of the cleanse that you're on. Of course, we have people that started 3 days early, and then we have one group that's on the pre-cleanse. So everyone is on the level of the toxin absorber. So of course, as you see here on the board, I'm not sure how clear that is, but if you're going to be taking the toxin absorber 5 times a day in 3-hour intervals, you're going to be utilizing your digestive stimulator number, which you would have figured out by now. And you're going to take that 2 hours after your last toxin absorber. You're going to make sure you get 6 to 8 glasses plus of water per day so that you can make sure that your body is able to move that toxin out of the system. And personally, I've been definitely having a lot of movements myself as far as just in my state of consciousness, because also what this cleanse is doing for me is right before the cleanse, there was something that was happening anyway. And really it was that I was getting tired of cooking. And this doesn't mean that I'm just going to stop eating and maybe become one of these breatharian individuals, but who knows. But the fact is that every time I found myself having to prepare something, I was like, okay, I got to go and do something else. I spent so much time just buying food and in the kitchen actually preparing it. It would be nice to take a break from food for a while, but still be able to be nourished. And what I've been noticing with this cleanse is, especially because of my hours, which is generally I do a lot of work and I don't get a chance to eat as much, even though I do take my supplements and my vitamins, etc. So I'm now in a process where I'm trying to see exactly how much food my body really needs anyway, especially if I'm adding the proper minerals and supplements to it. And that's something that we'll be experimenting with throughout the cleanse. Also today, as I said, we'll have the group on here in a moment, but you'll see I have the table loaded again. Excuse me. Let me put that camera on here. So I have the table loaded again with some interesting tools in order to assist you with the activation, the crystal activation, and also the powering and charging of crystals. I'll talk about some of the theories now that I've had about crystals and how to actually apply them properly to the chakra centers and why I feel like that is that's viable. And so I'll just, of course, explain the first things that are here, which is this particular pad is actually levitating this this disc that I have on top of it. And I'll remove that. And what you'll see here is that there's a space in between here, excuse me. But basically that this is levitating this actual, this magnet that's here, because the way this unit is configured is it uses the magnetic field and it balances the magnetic field, thus allowing it to actually float an object. And this was, of course, the original idea behind the UFO. And the reason why this becomes so important to me, as far as from something that could be considered to charge crystals, is it actually puts it into a free field, meaning a field of no gravity. It can feel weightless. If you were actually on one of these magnetic cushions, you would feel weightless. And also, because this magnetic energy field, again, magnets is obviously energy, and it can give off energy, and it's charged with some level of energy. This field in itself becomes a charging and a healing station for anything that you put in it. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get anything that is life-size that would be able to do something like this, meaning I haven't actually been able to find anything that could project a large magnetic field that would be that's stable, because as you see, this is obviously a stable magnetic field. This one is actually, it's called the Levitron, but this one is actually balanced in a way that it keeps spinning, because obviously if you tilt the axis on one part of this particular device, then it will cause it to basically spin, and so it adjusts and it oscillates how much energy is put on each corner. And so it's a very interesting device, but again, the reason why I acquired is in what's on top of it. Let me actually focus in a little bit more on that, because we talked about yesterday about growing crystals very briefly. And what this particular crystal is this is a crystal that actually has other crystals growing on top of it. And you won't be able to really see it now. That camera's not going to get in close enough. But this is obviously pulled from possibly a seafloor or some type of mineral bed. And on top of it are growing quartz crystals. And I'm sure if you did the research on this and you did some type of time lapse, you'll find that these crystals grow a lot faster in this free energy balanced magnetic field. So it makes us ask the question about what about our body, and are we capable of putting our body into some type of balance with its magnetic fields? And the answer to that is definitely yes. And I picked up a book a while ago, although I haven't had a chance to cover it in its entirety, but it's about bioenergetics. And this also goes into geoenergetics, which I talked about earlier, about the study of the Earth and how the magnetic centers on the Earth and the chakras of the Earth can be tuned and utilized to project certain levels of energy, right? So, of course, because our bodies are the Earth, then we should be able to do the same thing, and it turns out that we are. With bioenergetics, you'll find here, and I'll hold that up a little bit closer here to the camera, but you'll find here the instructions on the nodes of your body that are the points of where the energy goes in and comes out. And what this book goes on to present is that when your body is misaligned, that disease occurs and improper growth occurs and decay is sped up. And what it also introduces is a way to balance the field. And personally, how I came into this is I was actually in the hospital when my daughter was born, and I went downstairs and there was a guy that was in front of me and he was wearing an orgone pendant. And I asked him, how well is the orgone pendant working for him? And he says, to tell you the truth, I don't really get into this stuff much, but I don't really see much of a difference, but I wear it because my son told me to wear it. But he said, but what I do see a difference is this practice that I've been going to of bioenergetics. And there's a doctor here in Costa Rica, and he's basically, don't think of getting an appointment with him because he has way more people than he can actually see, but or actually I believe it's a woman and a man working together. But they work in this bioenergetics, and they went to the facility of this particular lady, the gentleman that actually taught this lady also. And they went to this facility and they learned this and how to determine how unbalanced a person's magnetic field is based on a couple techniques and exercises. And then after that, how to actually put very strong magnets, which these are called biomagnets, onto the proper areas in order to clear up the area, unblock channels, and to get energy into those areas so that the magnetic field of the body could begin to tighten itself again, which gives it the strength that it needs. It's like a core itself. If it becomes weak, that's actually when you experience loss of life and decay. But when it's strong and there's a cellular bond that's strong, this is when you see that the cells are constantly regenerating. The person looks young. They don't really look tired and wore down. This is also something, though, that you have to, personally for me, I would love to just start putting these magnets on any part of my body, but I haven't done that because I know it's serious. It's something that you have to understand how to configure properly. And this was because of an experience that I had with with magnetized hematite, I believe. And it was just a huge bunch of magnetized hematite that I had purchased. And I put all the magnetized hematite underneath my pillow and went to sleep. You know, back when you're in the Fringe, you do stuff like that. And when I woke up, it literally felt like all of my joints were about to come out of their socket. And when I walked around, it felt like I couldn't really keep I just felt very weak in the limbs. And what I realized happened was I demagnetized myself. I actually reconfigured my poles so that instead of being closer together and bound more tightly, I sent them in disarray and loosened them. And this caused me even to lose a certain level of my immune system. It was probably at least 2 weeks before I recovered, like my magnetic energy field recovered. Now, it'd be great if you can reverse that effect. Obviously, if you can somehow configure magnetic poles properly so that way you increase the bond in your body. And this, of course, is what you can accomplish with bioenergetics, but it also is very specific based on how they see magnets. Is the north and the south is only an entry and an exit point. It's not a positive and a negative as we know it. One pushes and one pulls. So if you understand whether you need to push something or to pull something, then you understand how to point the magnet. So, of course, you need to be fully familiar with how to determine the north and south poles of a magnet, which can be done with a compass or also a tester. And you have to understand the points of the body and how that energy is moving. So it is a serious study, but definitely well worth it within itself. In fact, it was something that I know that I'm going to eventually get under my belt in time, because I would love to fix people's ailments with simple methods such as this. Also, what I came into from learning about this was these little patches, which I was highly amazed about because I was able to utilize them in multiple areas. And what these patches are is, of course, that little magnet that I just showed you slides into this, and then this tapes onto the body. And I thought, and when I looked at this, I said, okay, well, it's just simply like a Band-Aid or something. You know, obviously it wouldn't hold up for but a few hours. These actually hold up for upwards of 5 to 6 days, even a week, with showers. So what I was actually able to conceive from this was the ability to be able to utilize these also to place crystals, especially the smaller ones such as the synergy crystals, onto chakra centers. And I'll demo that out for you very briefly. Let's go in, let me refocus the camera. But let's go into the crystal collection. This is actually the crystal collection that I've had from the time I've known about crystals. And so every crystal that I've ever had that I didn't give away is here. And so I'll go over here really briefly. And I have recently acquired, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, all of the synergy crystals again. And I was noticing exactly how small the synergy crystals were, but of course you only need the essence of the crystal itself. You don't really need like some huge crystal, especially if you can magnify properly or build prana and cycle prana. So it's very simple to take one of these small crystals. In this case, this is raw garnet, but museum grade. And this is the thing about crystals, because you can grab this huge garnet that you can tell what grade it is based on its clarity, etc. But that doesn't apply for every crystal. But with every crystal, you'll be able to tell the grade it is by certain characteristics. And with garnet, it's its clarity and the darkness of the color, and basically how much you can see through it and clear it is, or the inclusions that are removed from it versus the size, etc. So with this, you could take a museum grade garnet, which is obviously not very expensive, and then you can slide it into this pocket, and then you can put it onto the chakra center like this, and that's it. So then, even though it doesn't look like it's actually there, and I had some oil on my hands before this, but excuse me, not like it's not actually there, but that it's not going to stay, it actually will stay. Especially, you're going to have to take a shower, of course, before you do this. I actually have oil on my hands, so you don't want to put this on an oily surface. But if you put this on your dry skin surface, it will stick, and then it will stay there. And so, of course, I've had at times, especially when going through lower vibratory areas at times, like downtown, I will put a set of these on. So I'll have one here, here, here. I won't put one here on my forehead, obviously. You don't want to be in public looking like a weirdo. But I'll keep them here, 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 and here. And then on the back, in the coccyx, you could even, add to different parts of your knees, etc. But this becomes the perfect way to actually attach your crystals to your body without having to worry about losing those crystals or, and again, getting a good quality crystal. It doesn't have to be like a huge size. So the other thing is that we did add a synergy crystal section to the resistance or to the wholeness store. And so you are now able to get synergy crystal sets from us. I'll source that link here in just a moment. But we just thought we'd put all the synergy crystals together and then get them to everyone so that they can have their own set. And there's a lot of explanation about what exactly synergy crystals are and what the difference are between those crystals and regular crystals, et cetera, within that post. I'm going to now go ahead and give this opportunity for Keyshawn to come forth before I start going into some of the crystals that are here, because we have some awesome crystals. This crystal was actually given to me by a member of the Resistance who happened to go to Angkor Wat. And this, which would be obviously what you would really consider a Lemurian crystal, it still has the dirt of Angkor Wat and all of that still on it. So you can imagine how much information this particular crystal is holding. And before I turn the line over, that's why I was speaking of this magnetic field or strong magnetic field in order to actually enliven crystals, which are basically compressed energy or stored energy. So in a sense, anything that is rock form or dense has gone into another stage of the compression of its energy. In order to actually open up those energy pockets, etc., you would need to be able to turn it on or to power it. And this is why with the human being, we have this natural power system that actually works with these organic devices, because that's the other thing. You can't just boot this thing into some electrical device. You have to find a current that is actually assimilable to the actual crystal. And I've also been looking into whether solar power is capable of doing that, seeing that how our bodies run on solar power. In addition, or part of our bodies run on solar power. In addition, what I've also seen, especially with some of the devices that I know have worked, is generally they will utilize light at the chakra center that the color of the chakra, the light of the color of the chakra center that they're attempting to affect. And the crystal, in a sense, will be configured to actually allow the light to pass through it. So you're talking about a simple device. Of course, I don't have one here. But basically, the crystals in itself are like plates. They're like thin plates or discs. Very similar to the thing that's spinning under this. And the light itself from the laser goes through it like this. And then when that light comes through, it actually shines it shines through the crystal, thus sending the energy out of the crystal through this laser light into the chakra. And you can actually see chakras even jump when those kind of methods are used. And I've only seen this maybe once or twice, but a gentleman had a device that he made himself, and what it consists of was colored lights, mainly lasers, firing through crystals, and then that device itself being set up to be right over the top of particular chakra centers that resonate that color, and that being able to enliven those chakra centers. I also discussed magnetic buffering, which is a major thing. But magnetic buffering is basically about being able to create a field that your chakras can actually spin in. Because what happens is that as this compression and this breakdown of your DNA, et cetera, is occurring with the body, there becomes no free room for the chakras to move and oscillate like they need to. There's a lot of excess energies around those chakra centers. So in order to clear that out, then a magnetic buffer, which is obtained by utilizing crystals, and of course, if you can build up pranic energy, a magnetic buffer is necessary in order to get your chakras into a space where they can be free flowing. The chakra is a sphere. So when you think of it as a wheel, don't think of it as a two-dimensional wheel, but more of a sphere. And in that sphere, you see counter-rotating fields that also need to oscillate. So that's more of what you're dealing with in order to get a visual of exactly what the chakra is like. So yeah, let's go ahead and turn on this line and get things configured. Let me go ahead and switch the camera for a brief moment. And I may be able to show some crystals here while Keyshawn is talking and other members are talking in this particular session. I'm going to go ahead and reset this camera very briefly just so that it doesn't click off on us. I've tried numerous settings to prevent that, but it doesn't seem like anything works. So there we go again. And I'm going to be right here in this area. Okay. And let me go ahead and open up the line here. And I will need to get the headphones on in order to hear, but just give me a moment. I'll join the call. Okay, of course, everyone will need to definitely mute their line now as far as if they're listening to the live stream. And let me go ahead and tie this in properly. Actually, I'll just keep it out. I'm probably going to have to get up here in a moment. Okay, so is everyone able to hear me on the line, Wholeness?
Loud and clear. Wholeness, Yvonne.
Awesome.
Good day.
Good day. I'm glad it actually is working smoothly. You know, sometimes you get in here and then it's all technical situations, but I'm glad we were able to broadcast clearly on the Crystal Show because, of course, at day 5, everyone should be feeling really rejuvenated with energy. So I definitely am going to leave it to you now, Keyshawn, to talk about your experience with crystals. Of course, we put together a part of the resistance, which is related to crystals. It's in the Wholeness store. And you've definitely been putting together amazing crystal sets for people. And that's also led you into being able to go and explore with more mother crystals, I guess that's the word that wanted to come out, but you've been able to experience more with crystals, and so I would like to give this opportunity for you to explain to individuals what has been your overall experience thus far with, you know, just crystal expansion.
Thank you, Yvonne, for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here with you, of course, and with the family. To just share, first, before I go into the crystals, I want to make it a little lighter here. Someone asked me, I think you'll find it funny, someone asked, why do I call you Sevan? And they were adamant about me saying Seven or James. And I had to think about it because it just comes out that way. Every morning I say to myself, I love you so much, Keyshawn. And of course, Devon rhymes, and so it just comes out that way. So for the record, I think that's why. And when you hear that, it just offers an added pleasure for me throughout the day. So that's the reason why I say Devon. And as far as the crystals are concerned and my experience with the crystals, where would I start? About 2 years ago, my husband purchased a set for me, and it was an amethyst bracelet, and it was also a citrine, and he purchased me a kyanite. And at the time, I had no knowledge and information about crystals or what they do, and I have never heard of natural gemstones and crystals and all the properties. And so I went on a quest to read about the various metaphysical properties of crystals. And of course, you and I spoke recently that you will not find anything in the text that will speak negatively about crystals. Well, I am here to share with individuals, if you are looking to select crystals for yourself, either for crystal healing, let's say you want to purchase an orgone or a geode or a worry stone or like a tumbled gemstone, the best way to go about it initially is to research yourself first. find out exactly where you are in your spiritual journey, or the place you are right now here. Because what I noticed is we go off of someone else's knowledge, and let's say someone says, oh, go get this crystal because it will do this or it'll do that. We will end up with that crystal in our possession, and we may not be quite ready to receive that. And what I mean is, let's say there is a clear crystal quartz. For those we know will neutralize energy or the negative energy, but let's say a person hasn't gotten to a point in their spirituality to where they are ready to rid that from their lives, or they have someone in their environment that is still generating a high level of negativity for them, they can bring that crystal into their midst and facilitate that even more. And so I want to offer encouragement when seeking crystals. Try doing something like a chakra test first, because instead of getting like a clear quartz or something related to the heart chakra, you can actually start with a grounding stone, and we have those available. You can do research, find out what that is, or let's say you've already gotten grounded and you know exactly what level you are on. Based on that chakra test, we'll share with you exactly what chakra is activated within your body. And if that's the case, then just go ahead and get that crystal in your environment, and it will actually balance within your mix. And so I've experienced and I've discovered just having various crystals in my home. I'm in a really small space, and there were some synergy crystals that came in that I was totally unfamiliar with, and I noticed that it brought on so much energy that I wasn't ready for. What else, though, I noticed it will do, if you do want to start experiencing in that particular area, then bring it on. You'll have like a brute force method into that particular crystal world, and you'll begin having experiences that you can actually grow with and learn about, and just kind of gradually incline with the crystals if you're going from the root chakra to the crown chakra, and do it that way instead of taking someone else's advice, taking on some crystal jewelry that you have no knowledge about, and then go from there.
Excellent,
Also,
Keyshawn. Okay.
what I'd like to do, Savon, instead of you coming in right now, because I do have a couple of other individuals that want to share their experiences, we can just go ahead and let them speak. And then after they speak, you can come on in and then share with us your insight about what we shared.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Take it away.
Okay. Janet is on the line. Janet Myers is a close friend of ours. She's a member of the Resistance, and she's in London, and she actually created some very beautiful wire wrapped uh, crystal cord necklaces and shipped them to me, and told me she did it for free, by the way. And she asked me to just give them freely to anyone that came to mind. And I did just that with them. And she wanted to come on and actually share a little bit of her experiences and discoveries about the crystal world that she's inside of.
Awesome. Hello, Janet.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here talking about crystals. Can you hear me all okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Wonderful, wonderful. I was going to say about what made me want to do the jewelry is because I do believe in the power of the crystals. I believe in the power of energy and vibration. And I believe in it in all its forms, and we can harness the energy of a crystal um, uh, and use it in our body for healing, use it in our environment. I think if I can say a little bit about on the cleansing side of a crystal, when they were sort of like mined and first mined, they were often encrusted with various forms of mineral matter, and that was removed by placing the crystals in a bath of oxalic acid. And so from that point onwards, crystals were then handled by numerous people, different environments, different situations, and therefore picked up different energies along the way. So by the time it gets to you in your hands, you bought it in a shop or it's been posted to you, generally you've got all that, the treatment, the removal of its minerals from the oxalic acid, and then you've got all the energies of all the peoples that have handled it and the environments.
Right.
And a crystal is a memory. It is like a hard disk in a computer. It has memory, imprint, lots and lots and lots. And so people can program a crystal. You can, that's something else, programming a crystal. But in the cleansing of it, quite simply, if you place your crystal, if you've got a lot of crystals, you may need something like a gallon to a cup of salt water. So create in rock salt crystals, you know, something like that, and half a cup of cider vinegar if you're in a hurry. Otherwise, just leave it with the salt and leave it for a few days. And over the days, it will, when you finally take them out, they'll look so shiny, absolutely pristine and beautiful. Then you need to rinse them, and rinse them well, so you get off that salt. And then what I like to do is to my neighbours think I'm a little bit potty, but many people do this. When you know it's coming up to a full moon, go outside, make a beautiful display outside. For me, I tend to go into circles, and sometimes I put a cluster, or generally the great big ones are in the center of the circle, and all the other crystals and stones that I have, things that I want to partake of the lunar energy, goes in a circle around it. So when it has a full lunar charge, then I take it away. Sometimes, like if it's an important day of the year, say 21st of June, midsummer solstice, like coming up to the 21st of March, different solstices, I would want my crystals to take full advantage of that galactic time, that seasonal time, and recognize the changes within the crystals as well. How am I doing on time, Kishore?
Oh, you got plenty of time. It's very informative. Keep going. It's perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so I depends what area you're in, what you work with your elements. I'm here in the City of London. I have a vast mind, a vast imagination. I work with what I've got. I've got access to the sun. I've got access to the moon. I've got access to galactic energy. I've got access to the earth energy and water. And the rest is up to me what I want to bring to the table. So work with what you've got around you. If you have got an ocean around you, use the ocean. If you've got a river around you, use the running waters of the river. Oh, you've got such blessings around you when you look. If you've got caves, caverns around you, this is where most of the crystals came from within the earth, came from caves within the earth. The crystal caverns have been, absolutely amazing. The very ancients, the first Arcturians, the Atlanteans, they went into the caves. The first, I hate to say this, I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but first kind of Christians and people like that, the leaders of religions, they would show their power by taking somebody into a crystalline cave. But what they didn't share with the people is that, first of all, they would tune in themselves into the crystal. They'd look at the formation of the crystal and the ailment of the person, and then they'd align the person with that crystal within the cave, and they would receive the right attunement, the crystal attunement for the person with the crystal. I mean, they could the great big huge crystals in these caverns, but it's the same with us. We can attune ourselves into a crystal. But I do take on board what Kishore was saying about the negative energies. People have used them for negativeness, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about on the positive side.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing your discoveries and your insight about that. I've learned a lot from you, and I just want you to know how much we care for you here in the United States, and we send that all the way to London. And now,
Thank you.
you're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Savon, go ahead.
The second with me, Keyshawn, if you want to keep going, I just need to deal with the baby really
Okay,
briefly. You can keep
sure,
going.
no doubt.
I have something I can add.
Okay, go ahead, Ziggy, is that you?
Yeah, I am at work, but this
Oh,
actually
go ahead.
pertains to my work. I work with lasers, and there is a crystal at the heart of the laser. It's yttrium aluminum garnet. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's called a YAG rod. So I am literally seeing the manifestation of utilizing crystals for actual technology in the 21st century. You just shine light on it, and that is the energy that builds up in the laser that releases the photons. That is how you're able to output a laser beam. Lasers can be used to cut, they can be used to weld, they can be used to mark. What I'm doing here is we mark. So I am actually seeing firsthand the crystals, the power and energy they can release and be utilized for. So it's no word of a lie when you guys are saying that energy is within these crystals. I mean, these lasers wouldn't work without them.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. For reference, individuals listening now and for those in the future, we can actually learn some things about the crystals. I've learned that they do actually do what they say they do. We're on the do. But anyway, um, we will be able to take that in and actually share the experiences that we have with them. And Kiara is on the line, and she would like to share with us some of the discoveries she's had firsthand with the crystals. So, Kiara, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How are you today?
I'm all good here.
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing. I'm going to mute my line, so go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. And my name is Kiara. I'm in the United. Hi, Seven.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is exciting. Mainly because I'm relatively still new to the resistance. I've just recently heard about the site maybe 3 weeks or a month. So I always had a lot of questions, and I had a lot of people who answered them. But my biggest adventure with the resistance is with the crystals. I guess I kept like a diary of how the crystals affected me. So So I didn't really know much about them. So the first crystal I had was the red jasper, and it was fun. I can say definitely fun carrying the red jasper. It was a lot of energy. Uh, it was passion. It was like raw energy. My days with the red jasper, and it's either intense in a good way or intense in a bad way, which is why I like the fact that you guys said that they could bring negative things around too, because it did bring some negative things, things that never really happened around me kind of started happening. So it was very good and then it was very bad. I don't like saying, good and bad, but whatever. Um, I do say that when I got the crystals, there was a difference between the raw crystal that I had and the tumbled stones. Um, I was more drawn to the raw crystal. I liked the raw crystal a lot. I carried it around with me. I slept with it next to my bed, and it helped um, level the emotions and things that were going on around me. It was the raw amethyst. And then one other thing, I don't want to be wrong, was that after I had carried the red jasper, I had jumped to the clear quartz crystal. And when I did that, it was very rocky. And my days were rocky for a few days when I switched the crystal for that. I guess I wasn't ready for that one. And I had jumped from the red jasper was the root and the clear was the crown. So I basically skipped all the ones in between. And I had to reset, I guess you could say. I put all the crystals away because every day it just didn't get any better for me. And then I started over again with the red jasper and started working my way up. And it's been a lot smoother transaction in my experience with the crystals. But I'm very thankful for all the information. Definitely a lot of information, Seven and Keyshawn and Jan and everybody that I've met so far. So I'm still learning and looking forward to more information. That's me. I'm out.
Or my mic on here for the live stream. There's two separate mics here, so I do have to keep in mind to unmute the other mic. But thank you once again for sharing. But I also wanted to add to that, well, there's no buts to it, but I want to add to that definitely everything that we're experiencing has somewhat of a curve to it, as it's called. And that's even for me. I got on the distilled water and I started to have this adjustment phase. And let me get my other camera going on here. But I started to have this adjustment phase going on. And then that's when I started looking in the internet and I started studying even more about what it was, and I started even reading some of the bad things that were related to it. And I like the way that Janet said earlier, there's other uses. People have taken crystals, moldifites, different things and done stuff with them, but that's not what we're talking about right now. So I like the way she put that. And it's really one of those things where anything has the potential to be utilized for something malicious. And also even understanding how it's been used malicious also still leads us to the information of understanding how to not utilize it that way. What often happens, though, and especially I've noticed from my experience with crystals are amplifiers in every sense, just like they're used in nature, in electrical equipment and scientific equipment, etc. So what you'll really do is you'll at times magnify certain energies that are resident inside of you, and then it'll bring them up. And that also confronts you with them, which is always a little bit uncomfortable. But it also gives you the opportunity to finally go through it like you were supposed to go through it the last time that it came up. And that's also the whole thing with cleansing anyway. And notice how cleaning and glass and clear and all of that has to do with the same thing, because a lot of stuff comes up that maybe you don't want to deal with their experience, which is the whole reason why it's now in the sedimentation. And that's so interesting, because when we take the choice to actually deal with it and confront it, we actually are setting ourselves up to enjoy the next frequency of when we already overcome it. So again, that's a reward system. It's not so much as, oh, this bad thing is going to happen if I do this. It's actually being brave enough to confront anything that you may need to confront if it means your expansion. So this kind of ties into everything within this world. If you're not willing to stand up for yourself and say, I'm not going to eat that, and if you're not willing to put yourself into the right environments and make the right moves that are necessary for you to expand, then someone else will do the thinking for you, and then other situations will be created that will later on also have to be moved out of the way. So it's almost like we can take our lives now and stop all of the extra residue and karma that will appear in the future by making sure that we don't set our future path up for it. And that's the major thing about what they talk about is 100% responsibility of all of our actions, because even with the crystals are very still dense objects. So on a physical level, they don't get up and walk into your house. But still, of course, there are veins of crystals that run throughout the world, because the crystal itself is the circuitry and the connection of this planet in a major way on a cellular level, just like it is with the body. And so they connect still to their resonant vibratory frequency. And this is also another technique that I tend to already have installed as firmware in my mind about what I do when I receive crystals. And it's just another method. But when I would receive a crystal, let's say that, for instance, this is garnet, then I understand that it's still at a core, just like a human being, has a connection with its mother, garnet. And those end up coming into chemicals, light rays, composites, combustions, basically energy. And that's why you can still see that energy, like garnet has a high level of mass, so it's a lot more denser. So does pyrite. The mass on these elements are more like lead, meaning that when you look at it, you don't think that it's going to be as heavy as it is because it has more mass. They even say that there is one planet that is actually about the size of this, and it weighs more than Earth. So it lets you understand that mass is another matter entirely, but it's something that we need to study because it actually gets us into how to interface with other parts of self. I really don't like to, these days, take any of these energies and powers and let them run outside around me, and for me not to be able to, in essence, to consume them, meaning that I start seeing a lot of negativity as the reason why we should act. And my actions were fueled by the more negativity that I see that must be stopped. So in a certain sense, you can always take any type of element and use it as a fuel, but a fuel to do what? A fuel to give off more negative energy? Because sometimes when some people see certain things that hurt them, then they respond with more hurtful or more negative actions. And so while other people, they allow that to become a motivation for them to get into frequencies where such errors will never occur again. And so the main thing, though, that I'm seeing here that needs to happen is that we need to come together in doing this. Like, the only thing that's really changing is not so much as if the information has ever been available or not about what we're talking about. It's about whether people have had access to it on all levels. Like, are we getting information to the crowd that even people are saying are not interested in stuff like this? And again, if you look at the youth, especially, well, I'm 35 now, so I guess I'm not that old, but the youth in this case being those in the 20s and teens, in a sense, they're already looking at the world and seeing how it's just continuing to go into this trend, and that trend is going to govern what people wear and say and talk, etc. And then they get bored of that. It doesn't mean that they don't do it, though. In order to blend in society, they'll actually do it. But if they were offered something else different, especially an entire structure that shows you that this is actually a quest and this world is an adventure, and you can experience that adventure through crystals, through magnetics, through bioenergetics, and you can experience that with your body. It doesn't require you to have to go and be somewhere or be inside of something else, like the externalized temple, as I call it. And that's why the virtual platform has given us the ability to, a person can choose to tune in when they want. They can say, I don't, I'm at the, fifth day of my fast. I don't feel like hearing any of that today. Boom, they turn it off. And then later on, they may feel different and then turn it back on. So it always gives the person their space and the ability to think on what's being said so that they can come to their own conclusions. But after a while, if it's the truth, we should all be coming to the same conclusions at the same time. And so many of these experiences that we're having are, in every sense, definitely able to, how can I put it? In every sense, the experiences that we're actually having are able to show us more parts of ourselves, but again, challenge us to say, do you want to see that side of self? And so this is one of the things that I was thinking about this morning. It was just a saying, but a lot of times if people begin to idolize you, and then, of course, a lot of people become judgmental, they see something that they don't want to see, then they may separate. Like I noticed certain individuals over time have separated themselves from us for really no reason beside of something that how they think they're seeing things, they're perceiving things. And this led me to the realization that for each other, we at times become the challenge to whether we can deal with ourselves. Like when you look at someone in a certain stage, just to imagine you were never on that stage before is in itself doesn't even make any sense, because seeing that it's all layered and it all must exist in layers in order for it to even exist, it means that whatever frequency a person is actually on, that is a frequency that you have been on and can choose to be on at some point in your existence. The other deep thing about it is that also means that every individual does have this, let's just call it this time, higher harmonic frequency in them. But it's not what they're choosing to amplify. So this becomes just like a crystal, that this crystal has some specifics to it as to what it can do. However, the person who is able to amplify this is what is needed. So what happens oftentimes is we find in the explanation of crystals, like I wrote the explanation of the synergy crystals based on a lot of integers of information that I was receiving in my intuition. But when I notice when people write about crystals, they always say something like, oh, it gets you in contact with the higher angelic nature, third eye, they always include that, it's a third eye crystal. And they throw in all this good stuff to where every single explanation of each crystal is the same, right? And this, of course, starts leading to the theory that all crystals are good. And, it gets into basically blurring everything together. But this is also where we have this micro-macro approach, meaning that you still see the body functioning as one, but you also see inside the body in the many pieces. So what is the many pieces of these different crystals in these different spectrums? And the answer to that is their geometry. Because when you go and you look up any of these crystals, you'll find that there are either it's a rhomboid or it's it was different terms. Either it's in this case, you see this is a dodecahedron, or what sometimes called a pentagon. So you have, even if you crush this crystal down to dust, if you look at it under a microscope, actually it'll get closer and closer towards the perfect shape of what it really is. So when you're seeing it in this big form, all you're seeing is, an infinite number of smaller geometric shapes all fused together. And when they became fused together, this is the elements and things that were, the energies that were utilized, and it thus created this color, which is basically the holistic explanation of what they'll explain with the same process on Wikipedia, which is scientific, about how chemicals and elements come in together and it actually creates such things. What they do actually leave out, though, is that it's alive. It is energy, it's stored energy, and you can utilize it. There's also a couple crystals that they say, and I would go with it because of my experience with them, don't need to be cleansed in the sense that they are shielded crystals. And this is like the citrine and, of course, the selenite. But these crystals being very interesting when they have to interact with money, because money is also a major crystal in itself, but it's using a different level. It's using more or less the cutting of roots is what it's called, but it's using the energy of the trees, and then there's a magnetic strip in there. So that's why anyone that is slightly activated at times can feel when they hold the money, either the energy coming from it or sometimes a pop in the nodes. And you know that the money has been passed from hand to hand to hand, and basically it's recording every single transaction. And of course, most money, as far as it from a cash level, always ends up in the hands of individuals doing large cash deals. And there's only certain kinds of large cash deals that take place on Earth. So it basically makes sure that the money goes through different hands before it gets to you. So it's a good idea to keep many of these crystals that, well, I know two in specific, which is the selenite and the citrine, around things that you know that you have to have around you, but would be giving off some level of energy that you wouldn't be able to see completely through it, or you know the energy could be tainted. Also, there's an entirely different dynamic to being able to utilize the meteorites, which is, of course, I believe 3 of the crystals inside of the Synergy crystal set are actually tektites or meteorites. And this opens up an entirely different dynamic. I remember one time I had been collecting real motivites, and this is the other shame of the industry that's happening now, which is that many of the meteorites and already being pegged for being valuable are starting to be counterfeited. And so the only way that you can really tell if this is an actual piece of motivite at times is if you have the ability to feel some type of sensation or tap into the crystal. And so what this leads to is that I discovered that with crystals such as moldavite, that because of their entry or how much heat was taking place when it came into the planet, and this is with the tektites, then it's able to fuse a certain level of the stardust, meaning reaching a certain level of heat does cause another level of element to be present. And these type of substances were so high in vibratory frequency, they had the ability to basically propel you through or amplify you through time. And this being for better or for worse. And so this is also, I put a cautionary with stones like motivite, and even Keyshawn said earlier, that the mature part of being adept is to make sure that you're able to guide the ship, if you understand how important that is, your body, before you send it on its direct trajectory, meaning to actually aim it properly and guide it properly before you take off. So that way, if you're utilizing these crystals that are not so much as healing crystals, but projection crystals, which many of them are, then you don't project or propel yourself into the wrong direction faster. So that's, of course, where even with certain stones can hold. I believe I was talking to Luis the other day, and he asked me, hey, can a crystal make you sick? And I said, yeah, if it's actually been around, especially a quartz crystal has been around very high EMF fields, or I think what's called Tao, which is another energy that basically is like a dirty version of orgone energy, and it picks up that energy and it holds it. Now, this, of course, would be with things like orgone, just as you see, orgones are made mostly of crystals. Crystals can extract at times certain energies from an individual, which you would call changing of the frequency. But now that that crystal has extracted that crystal is basically sick in certain senses. So if another person just comes and picks up that crystal and then lays it on their chakra, they may start feeling sick, just like the person was holding it before, because of course it's holding the memory and it's holding a little bit more than that, it's holding the energy. So you have to, in many senses, release those kind of energies from crystals. And that's done, of course, consciously. It's done also according to the magnetic energy of the moon, also cleansing the crystals properly. Some crystals can be cleansed with salt. Others should not, like tektites should not, they say, be put in salt. So there's different levels of how some people use smoke to do it. But basically what it is just releasing the energies from the actual substance. And there's nothing actually wrong with this, because it would be like if something is possessed with an energy that doesn't necessarily belong to it, it allows that energy to be released. So just working on another level. I also heard that someone did open up their mic. And I'm going to give this opportunity for someone to say anything that they want. Of course, the lines are open. And we'll, of course, be tying this up just a little bit here because, you know, there's few more things to do. Actually, I've been running just a little bit behind with just normal resistance stuff, which I have to catch up on. That's why I'm going to be doing these shows now at 1 o'clock. We're going to hold to this. And I'm going to probably come on tonight, but I don't really, again, see the necessity of me coming in 2 times a day if I can introduce all the information early in the day. I would definitely like us to interact more, especially on the chat. But this will only be so that I can service some of the other things that I've been dealing with here in this environment in building this new platform for us all to be able to springboard off of even more. So yeah, and if anyone does have anything to say, this will be a great time.
Thank you, Savan. Well said. It wrapped up and tied into exactly what I spoke of, what Janet spoke of, as well as the experiences that Kiara has, well, the experience that we're all having with the crystals. And with that, I would like to share with those listening now and those that will be listening in the future, there is a crystal section on the Resistance site if you aren't in the know of that already. And Savan mentioned about that. The Wholeness store, the easiest way to get there, if you're on the Resistance site, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom and you have these really nice configured circular buttons. There's one that says magnify and it has a crystal there. If you click there, it'll take you directly to a section where you will be able to, and we're also updating that section for sure real soon, but you'll be able to select up to 3 crystals to incorporate into jewelry. But again, just remember to research where you are before you select 3 different crystals because you like the color or because you like the definition or because you want to focus on a particular chakra. Make sure that you do that investigation and you configure the appropriate gemstones for your jewelry. But what we'll be doing, which I'm very excited about, we'll be offering raw crystals according to a color spectrum. So you'll also notice on the site that there are chakra stones. It's a chakra stone kit, and we'll be able to offer a variety of stones within the color spectrum. And so just depending on your budget or whatever, you'll be able to click and do a shopping cart selection and have those shipped to you for free. So, well, let's say there is a section where you will have a shipping price just because of the crystal price itself, but no worries. Just do it if you feel you need to and know that they will come your way in the appropriate time that you need them. So thank you, Savan, for allowing us to share in this segment on the Crystal Show today with the cleanse. And I trust that everyone is having optimal experiences on their day-to-day walk with this virtual cleanse as I am. And it, of course, is enlightening me and also it's taking me into unfamiliar areas that I embrace and I'm so grateful for. So thank you.
Thank you. And definitely tomorrow we're going to be getting into more of the interaction with the breathing and the chakras because I'm introducing everything in the order in which I feel that it'll be most helpful to everyone. And that's why we didn't really talk today about how to place chakras, how to place crystals on chakras, because that's really a part of the breathing segment of this. And so there's a couple other things that I do want to talk about, and we'll just schedule that as the days continue to go on. But it's just amazing. Like I said, personally, I'm not hungry right now. So this is strange because generally what happens though is in the morning, I'll work, and I won't eat anyway. And then now I have this toxin absorber stuff, and it seems to just blow up the belly. And so I'm not feeling that hunger. But I do also know that you know, when you do have a lot of the toxins in the body, there's just more things saying, hey, where's my food supply? Hey, feed me. So realize that there's a great deal of mental hunger that takes place, but it's not actual physical hunger because you're getting everything that you need to still sustain yourself. So I wanted to say again, wholeness and balanced vibrations. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.